Hello, WildEarth fans, and welcome to Penguin Beach. I'm so excited to be back. My name is Byron, and I'm going to be your naturalist for the day. Behind the lens, I'm joined by Flippy, and we are so excited to be down here at the Stony Point African Penguin and Seabird Colony. We are hanging out down here at the left wing. Let's see what the African penguins are up to down here today. We are coming to you live, and it is an interactive show, and we would love to hear from you. You can please send us your questions and comments over Twitter using the hashtag @WildEarth. You can also register on the WildEarth website, and you can post your comments and questions under the live feeds. If you are under the age of 18, pop us an email to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. We are looking forward to hearing from you, and we really want to feel like you are down here on the beach with us today. Not the worst weather in Betty's Bay for a winter's day. Hello, Nature Hugger. Wow, I'm so happy that you are excited to see me. I must say, I really have been missing Penguin Beach, and I know that Jax and Flippy have been having such a great time seeing Stanley and seeing Pepper, as well as watching Cape Gannets dive for fish. I must say that I was extremely envious of all of their sightings, and I hope that some of the characters pop up here today. We do have quite a nice sunny day. There is a little bit of cloud in the sky and some wind blowing offshore. But let's head over to the official weather forecast and see what we can expect from the weather down here on the beach today. That's not too bad, 17 degrees Celsius. And there does look like there are a lot of clouds hanging over the ocean to the south of us, but I'm sure they are going to stay away. They actually look like they are blowing past us, and hopefully we won't get wet today. I know that the safari teams have been getting absolutely soaking wet while we have been enjoying the sunshine in Betty's Bay, which is quite unusual for winter. I must say the temperatures have definitely decreased, especially the morning temperature and the evening temperature. It is very cold during those times in Betty's Bay at the moment, but nice and warm during the middle periods of the day. And I must say, it's good to be a penguin during this time of year. They're not having to deal with the extreme heat of summer. We have two individuals just waddling up towards Rocky Beach. Hello, Isla, and welcome to the show. And thank you so much for joining us. It really is exciting because nature has this way of just surprising you. You're not expecting anything, and all of a sudden, something pops up and takes you by surprise, which is so exciting. So thank you so much for joining us down here. And these penguins are going for a waddle. There is a little penguin walkway that they are moving on. And when they walk on that walkway, they normally go underneath the penguin protection fence towards a bench that visitors like to sit on and observe them. But just look how cute they are waddling along, and that is such a fitting term for a group of penguins, a waddle. And they are waddling clumsily over the vegetation.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colours, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the WildEarth Explorers page. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer and you could win all of these goodies.
WildEarth, it's in your nature.
All WildEarth Explorers have a chance to join our naturalists in a monthly fireside chat. This is a great way to learn more about our guides, animal characters, and wildlife locations. We would love to hear from you as to the topics that interest you the most. Email us your ideas or tweet using the hashtag WildEarth, and we will be sure to take them into account when planning our evenings around the fire in the future. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Hello, Erin. That's a great question. Do the penguins ever waddle into the city? So here at Betty's Bay, a number of the residents that live close to Stony Point will have them nesting in their properties, especially if they have nice, dense bushes that penguins like to build their nests under. Of course, shade is the main requirement for a penguin nest, well, to be successful at least. It's not too built up in Betty's Bay, and it is a very quiet little coastal village. There's a lot of retired people that live here and people that work from home, and the majority of the houses are actually holiday houses. But if we have to go across to Boulders Beach Penguin Colony, just in False Bay, those penguins actually cross the Simonstown main road and head quite far into the residential area. And they like to do it at night as well. It's quite comical watching them at night all gather in groups and move up into the residential area. It looks like they are going to get up to mischief when they do that. But one of my functions when I worked at Sandparks was to actually ensure that the penguins got over the tar road safely. Of course, vehicles can be a great threat to a slow-moving, flightless bird. You can see how they navigate the rocky shores down here in a very clumsy, cautious fashion. Fiona, that is great. When are the penguin chicks going to start waddling by the beach? So I suppose when they get to about 30 to 35 days old, they won't really be waddling as such. They will waddle a little bit at that time when they form creches. So a number of similar aged penguin chicks will get together and hang out on the beach for safety in numbers. And for protection, well, both of the adults go out to forage at that time, but they will start to waddle properly when they get to about 60 days old. Of course, some chicks do develop a lot slower than others, depending if they hatched first or hatched second, or sometimes even third. And it also depends on the food that they are provisioned with by the adults. So penguin chicks that receive a lot of fish will develop a lot quicker, and penguin chicks that get fed a lot of squid develop a little bit slower. So there will definitely be a different time frame for different chicks, but the very first little waddles will take place around 30 to 35 days, and they'll be waddling properly, a lot of them when they are called baby blues, at about 60 days old. This individual has come quite far across from the rocky beach and is moving towards the very large waddle of African penguins hanging out down here by the left wing.
Look at that, there's a tiny leopard cub. Karula has given birth overnight. Look at the little guy who just came around the corner. That is incredible, that's probably his first solo kill.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, and have a look, here comes Osano with the monitor lizard.
Osano, of course, at the same time decided to go climbing up the tree. He's just nearly fallen out of it again.
Look at that, he's running away. The buffalo is chasing Osano at the moment. Tingana has been affectionately known as the Duke of Juma for many years, but his path to the throne was not an easy one. Mvula was a legend from the south.
This is the cat that I'm pretty sure Tingana was sniffing around for. That is Mvula. How exciting is this?
Eventually, Mvula lost, but his young son Quarantine started to push through from the east. At the beginning of 2018, an intruder arrived. His name was Hukamuri.
And the individual just settled right amongst all the other penguins. Good spot to be. Always nice to have other individuals on the outside of you. If you're on the center, of course, you are the most well protected. Lizardi, I hope I got your name correct. That is a very, very beautiful and unique name. And you would like to know if you find penguins in different areas of the Cape. So here in Southern Africa, which will include Namibia as well, we get one species of resident penguin, and that is the African penguin that we are observing today. In the Cape, there are two land-based colonies, one where we are now at Stony Point in Betty's Bay, and the other in Simonstown, and it's known as Boulders Beach, a very, very famous penguin colony. The other penguin colonies that occur in the Cape are on very small offshore islands. The closest island to us would be Dyer Island, which is to the east in a little town called Gansbaai. There are other islands that are known for their penguins as well, and that is Robben Island, of course famous for Nelson Mandela as well as Dustin Island. And Shazadi, I have your name correct. I somehow got an L and an I somewhere in the beginning of your name. My apologies, and thank you so much for interacting with us and enjoying all the action down here at Penguin Beach. Oh, some lovely vocalizations taking place. The typical brain sound of the African, also known as the jackass penguin. In typical fashion, this individual is pointing its bill to the sky and opening its flippers. Such an amazing vocalization to watch, because they don't just sit there and sing or call like another bird. They actually move their entire bodies. Very, very awesome. And that could be a vocalization to a potential partner. My darling, where are you? I am ready to mate. And these penguins do have to find their partners. They are often separated for long periods of time. And with penguins, they often have the same partner year after year during the breeding season. And this vocalization is one way that they can find each other.
This morning we were driving and suddenly we heard a lot of commotion. I think the wild dogs might have caught an impala then, or the leopard might have caught the impala, and as it was dragging it, the wild dog saw it, started chasing the leopard up into the tree, and then the hyenas came to steal it. unusual sighting.
Hello, Kimberly. That's a fascinating question, and we are just on the brink of winter. So we are heading into early winter here in the Western Cape, and I'm sure we are going to get into the thick of things soon. The rain can't stay away forever. Neither can the gale-force northwest winds that accompany it, as well as the very, very large swells. So the main change that takes place during the winter period is that the majority of the colony are breeding, and that's because they coincide, or the breeding season coincides with cooler temperatures. And that's so that the adults can stay close to the nest without having to leave their eggs or their chicks if they suffer from any heat stress. What will happen is often the adults will leave the nests during summer, go stand down by the shore to cool off by the sea, and a kelp gull will swoop in and grab an egg or grab a small little chick. What you will notice as well in winter is that the penguins will hide. When there are strong winds and rain, they will just hide behind rocks, hide behind small little shrubs to try and get a little bit of respite from the weather. And then when the swell is very, very large in winter, we do experience our larger swells rolling in from the southwest. If it is a high tide accompanied by a large swell, you'll notice that the penguins will position themselves very, very high up on the shoreline to try to stay away from the crashing waves. So there's a number of behavioral changes that do take place in winter, related to the weather and related to the breeding season. You also find in winter that you don't often observe penguins panting as much as they would in summer, so you don't see the same levels of heat stress during this time of year.
Ribbon is the matriarch and has recently been seen with injuries to her body. Corky was the previous matriarch and is believed to be taking back her status. Intima was born to Ribbon in February 2017 and also enjoys a high ranking. Heart is the next rank down, and named June is believed to be the lowest rank, easily recognizable by a floppy left ear. 3 brothers named the Avoca males arrived in Juma in 2018. This area had recently been vacated by the Birmingham boys. In 2019, they were seen mating with females from both prides and went on to sire cubs with them. The most recognizable lion in this coalition is Darkmane. Aside from the dark mane that gave him his name, he can be recognized by a distinctive limp.
Hello, hello, Arctic Circle, the Burrowing Penguin Award holder. How are you? That is a great question, and very relevant because the urban area is directly behind Penguin Beach. You'll often see a house or two during the show. And of course, a number of people do have domestic animals, and the main types of domestic animals here in Betty's Bay are domestic cats as well as dogs. And the one day I actually came walking down the path here and I found 2 dogs right here at the left wing chasing the penguins. I of course shouted at the dogs very loudly and got them to move along. So they can have a negative impact on the ecosystem. If we rewind the clock back to the molting season, which is between November and January, penguins are very vulnerable to hypothermia, and that's because they're losing a lot of their feathers all at once. And they do not like to be disturbed, and preferably do not ever want to go into the water, because that can make hypothermia a reality. And if that happens during that time, of course it will have a negative impact on the African penguins. Also, domestic dogs are four-legged animals with very nice sharp teeth, so it's very, very easy for them to predate on an African penguin, and it has happened in the past. I have seen that at boulders. Often they don't even eat the penguins, they will just unfortunately kill them. And that's why it's so important to have penguin protection fences and to have rangers patrolling the areas on a daily basis to ensure that things like this do not happen. It's also very important for the owners of the domestic animals to ensure that if they are walking a dog, for example, that that dog is kept on a leash. It is quite difficult to, of course, control domestic cats. Everyone knows what cats are like. They tend to have a mind of their own. So if you do live in an area like a biosphere reserve, like we do here in Betty's Bay, it is advisable to try and keep your cat inside, because cats can predate on small little penguin chicks that have been left by their parents for a short duration of time. So they definitely can have a negative impact, and it's up to everyone to try and ensure that their domestic animals do not negatively impact on such a lovely, well, such in any area really. This individual right here at the back has very similar markings to Stanley, not as beautiful as Stanley, but looks very, very similar to Half Stan's markings. Hello, Sarah. That's a good question. Is it possible for a penguin to catch a disease from a cat or a dog? I don't think so, to be honest. The main diseases that penguins experience are bird flu. I know avian malaria is also a disease that impacts on African penguins, although mainly in captivity. But I don't think that there are diseases that can cross over from domestic dogs and cats. I could also be completely wrong, but I have never heard of any diseases being passed on to the African penguins from domestic animals. And in an area like Boulders and in Stony Point, if that was possible, I'm sure that it would have been very, very well documented. We have the African alarm clock has landed. Quite late for the alarm clock. They are early risers. So this is the Hardy-Dar ibis, a very, very beautiful bird. Quite a large bird as well, with beautiful glossy feathers.
In that tree are two carcasses. There's a duiker carcass and a waterbuck. Well, it's not as graceful as he's a bit hesitant because, well, climbing a tree is not the easiest, but he will get up there eventually. So let's see, there he goes. And look at the power in that. That is a massive 500-pound cat that has just climbed the marula tree and is up in there. How cool is this? I don't know how he's going to do it, but let's see.
You can see the hyenas are far more tolerant of vultures than a lion or leopard would be. Occasionally a hyena will bite sort of a couple of tail feathers out of the back of a vulture, but I've never actually seen them, even once they've caught one, actually kill it. Oh, there we go, nearly got him.
sand fleas are very good at burrowing into the sand to try and get away from predators like this hardy-dar. But of course, look at that bill. That bill is so long and decurved and is designed for probing into the sand. So they might be able to escape a little Cape wagtail with its short, pointed bill, but a hardy-dar ibis, the sand flea, is no match to this bird. It's very cool, actually, if you had to go walk there where that hardy-dar ibis is busy probing into the sand. Makes these really cool holes in the beach sand. It's known as stitching, so you can always see where the ibises have been feeding, searching for tasty morsels that are either trying to get away from them in the sand or that are already hiding. It's very interesting when we look at a bird that probes for food. The bills are mainly decurved. If that bill was straight over time, the bill would likely become recurved, and that would put a lot of pressure on the bird's bill, and it could actually cause it to break. So having it recurved, sorry, not recurved, having it decurved is an advantage, and make sure that that bill remains nice and strong so it can continue foraging in this manner. Susie Miller, welcome to the show. That is great. My best impersonation of a hardy-dar. Let's see. Flippy, let's see if I can do a nice one. That would be my best impersonation, Susie Miller, of a vocalizing hardy-dar. And I'm doing this because they often vocalize when they fly. So thank you very much for that. I really enjoyed that. Let's see if the hardy-dar ibis will return a call. I don't think so. It actually looks a little bit startled, wondering what this crazy person is doing on the path. I wonder how often hardy-dars get shouted at like that. I know that one of my colleagues that I used to work with, the ex-ranger, used to say that the hardy-dar made a sound that sounded like a sentence in Afrikaans. It went, Mark, Mark, Klaar, Mark, Mark, Klaar, which means make, finish there. I suppose, if you translate it directly. But if you ever do hear a hardy-dar flying overhead again, just listen for the Mark, Mark, Klaar. You will hear it every time I hear them fly over. It's normally at first light. That's why they called the African alarm clock. I always think of my colleague Enrico, who taught me that. What a pleasure it is to forage down here on the beach. You'll notice that this bird's feathers are completely still, and this offshore breeze that is blowing over the land, it's not having an impact on any of the birds down here, really. It's a nice light breeze, a nice mild winter sun, and a really cool day to be a bird. Maya, wow. I can't say that I have ever seen a hardy-dar chick. I haven't had the privilege of seeing a very young hardy-dar chick ever. So it would be very interesting to know exactly how large they are when they hatch, because of course they are very large birds. All the ibises in fact, so I could only assume that the chicks are very, very large. I know that information is definitely out there, so I'd like to have a little look and get back to you tomorrow. Let's see how large a hardy-dar chick is when it hatches. Very, very interesting. I would love to see that, because I'm sure that little hardy-dar chicks are probably quite cute as well. I wonder what their bill would look like as soon as they hatch. So of course they've got this very, very, very large bill as adults.
Hyena and hippo walking side by side, terror etched on the expression of little hippo. Look at this! Last mad dash! Hyena running along beside it. Baby hippo, jaws gaping. It's gonna make it. It's gonna make it. It did it. The baby hippo against all odds.
Hukamore. Oh, here's an impressive looking male leopard. Look at that neck on him. He just looks ready for a fight.
This is only the third time that we are seeing him that is known as the Hukamuri male, and he certainly has a lot of character and atmosphere.
This is gorgeous. Hukamuri having a drink at one of the little seasonal pans.
Isn't he absolutely gorgeous? Compact, powerful, focused. I love it.
I was watching this hardy-dar quite intensely, and Flippy got very excited, and with good reason. Look who has joined the party at the left wing. It is Mr. Yellow Socks, the little egret, and it is currently stalking some prey in a very, very shallow rock pool. The tide is still dropping out, so it's very difficult for fish that get trapped in those pools to head out into the main part of the ocean again. So these really are perfect conditions for the little egret to hunt. Oh, look at that reflection off the water. The little egret did try and grab a fish, but it appeared to be unsuccessful. It was trying to be as stealthy as possible. Seems to have spotted some more prey. But the fish seem to be too quick. Wow. So the legs were just shuddering there a little bit. That's very, very cool behavior to see. That little egret is performing something known as foot pedaling, where it shakes its leg or moves its foot around in the water a little bit just to disturb the sediment, to see if it can flush any prey. There are little fish known as clipfish, rockfish, as well as blennies and gobies that do spend a lot of time right on the sand and can sit motionless for long periods of time. And they're very cryptic as well because of their coloration. Of course, invertebrates can also be flushed like that. Very, very interesting hunting technique. Whenever I see a little egret do that, it reminds me of my friend Cedric. Hannah, you are 10 years old. Thank you so much for watching the show. So Hannah, what I call a bird that cannot fly is I simply call it a flightless bird. I'm not sure if there is actually a specific term for a flightless bird, but I simply refer to them as flightless, and a bird that flies, I would call it a flying bird. Let me see if I can find any specific terminology that describes a flightless bird. Flippy? Flippy's shaking his head, Hannah. You've caught us. You've caught us. We are going to have to try and find an exact term, but throughout my conservation career, I've always just referred to a penguin, for example, as a flightless bird. Very, very interested to know if there is an exact term. I'm sure there must be, because there is literally a term for everything. The little egret has hidden itself behind the rocks, but the hardy-dar ibis are still enjoying themselves. You can actually see the pair, and the individual at the back has got beautiful iridescence just on those covering wing feathers. The sun is hitting that at the perfect angle. I must say, I don't think that these hardy-dar have moved more than 2 meters since they have landed in this region. It really gives a good indication of how abundant the little sand fleas or beach hoppers are. Even the heartless gulls are getting in on the action down here. The little egret has just come around the corner, around the rocks, so it disappeared amongst the rocks and has now come out and is standing at another shallow pool. I'm looking at the position of the sun. The sun is in front of this bird, which means that its shadow will be cast behind it if it was approaching this little rock pool from the other direction. Its shadow, it looked like it captured something. I couldn't quite see. It was quite a small food item.
All WildEarth explorers have a chance to join our naturalists in a monthly fireside chat. This is a great way to learn more about our guides, animal characters, and wildlife locations. We would love to hear from you as to the topics that interest you the most. Email us your ideas or tweet using the hashtag WildEarth, and we will be sure to take them into account when planning our evenings around the fire in the future. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
Look at that, there's a tiny leopard cub. Karula has given birth overnight. Look at the little guy, we just came around the corner. That is incredible, that's probably his first solo kill.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, and have a look, here comes Osana with the monitor lizard.
Osana, of course, at the same time decided to go climbing up the tree. He's just nearly fallen out of it again.
Look at that, he's running away. The buffalo is chasing Osana at the moment.
Sometimes the little egrets can sit still for very long periods of time. Looks like it started to rest again, and we are back with the heartless gull that is happily munching away just along the Strandline. Gulls really are the masters of the Strandline. I recall being younger and walking past seaweed like this and not really acknowledging what a vital impact it has to bring food to all sorts of different animals. Burrowing Petrel Award. So Arctic Circle would like to know if more chicks hatch during the day or the night, and that's a very, very difficult question to answer. It would be interesting to know if there is literature on the African penguin, if they have recorded if eggs hatch more frequently at night or during the daytime, but I unfortunately do not know the answer to that. We did hear a very loud caw, something along those lines, and another little egret actually flew in to this region, and they have flown off in a northeasterly direction further up the coast. I wouldn't say it is a pleasing call to the ears. Quite a raucousy, harsh call. Look at this beautiful juvenile African penguin. Very, very nice white ventral side. And a beautiful little stripe of white just above and to the back of the eye. Doesn't look too plump, but looking at the feathers, they look quite coarse, especially around just above the shoulder. I would be interested to see if this bird turns to us, but doesn't look very, very plump. I'm wondering if this bird is about to start molting just by looking closely at the feathers above its flipper. Often what can happen if birds do not get enough food before they molt, they can go into what is called an arrested molt, and they stop molting completely.
My favorite thing about WildEarth are the animals and the interaction and the ability to wait and watch and not rush off. You get to watch their behavior and learn about the individuals. I would like to see the hyenas at the hyena den, and I have. There. Look at that. If I could be any animal, I would be a cheetah. I would love to run fast.
Our Western Cape coastline is graced with the Cape fur seal. This playful species is curious and entertaining. At Hout Bay Seal Rescue Centre, seals in need are rescued, fed and nursed back to health by our well-trained team of dedicated staff and volunteers. This wonderful legacy of the centre is continued as these protected creatures are rehabilitated and released back into the wild.
It's amazing when we observe conflict, how quickly the conflict is settled. This individual is carrying around a piece of seaweed and is looking quite broody. There has a very, very interesting question that has been asked, and I'm just going to ask Jared to just repeat the name. I know it was Wild Guy, but I couldn't get the beginning of the name. So I know that the question was, how many muscles does it take? Or how many muscles are in use when a penguin vocalizes? I must say, Billy Wild Guy. I've got it, Jared. Thank you so much. And that's a very, very interesting question. How many muscles does a penguin use when it vocalizes? And when we watch an African penguin vocalize, you can see that a number of muscles are in use as it stretches its neck up to the sky, spreads its flippers, and also makes that very loud vocalizing noise. You can actually see the entire breast moving up and down as it vocalizes. So that's a fantastic question, and an answer that I do not know, and an answer that I would really, really like to find out. Honestly, something that I've never ever thought about. So that is a fantastic question, Billy Wild Guy. Let's see if we can find the answer to that fabulous question. This penguin is being quite sweet, running up and down the beach, looking for bits of seaweed. Probably feeling quite broody. Of course, March and May are the peak months for the African penguin to breed in the Western Cape, and that individual probably feels like it is missing out on the action. Hello, Kate, and welcome to the show. So there's a number of crustaceans, actually, rather than insects, that often feed on the seaweed. And the two main crustaceans that feed on the seaweed are the sand fleas that we have been watching all the birds eat, as well as sea slaters. And sea slaters are crustaceans that actually look very cockroach-like, and you'll often find them hanging around in the damp rocks. So they are the main primary consumers of seaweed. And then, of course, one of the main insects that feeds on the kelp are the actual kelp flies. But there are several crustaceans that feed on the insect. There's actually many that will devour all of this kelp that is lying on the beach. And if we were to disturb the kelp, you'll actually see a lot more activity. Just lifting it up will disturb a number of the crustaceans, especially that are underneath the kelp.
If you are a Wild Earth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colors, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the WildEarth Explorers page. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer, and you could win all of these goodies.
WildEarth, it's in your nature.
There is a waddle, not a raft anymore. They were a raft of penguins when they were in the water, but there is a waddle of penguins that have come back to shore, that have returned from hunting. Hello, Scenic. That's a great question, especially at this time when the individual penguins, or when the adult penguins, I should say, are coming back from hunting. So the adult penguins will go out and hunt, and they'll try and find bait fish like sardines and anchovies. They also often find small species of squid, referred to as chocker in this part of the world. And when they return from hunting, they actually have the ability to change the pH level in their stomach, which delays the digestion of the fish or the squid. And when the adults return to the chicks, they will regurgitate fish and squid for them to eat. We have been quite fortunate recently to observe the chicks, especially down at the Shire, getting fed. Even though the chicks are hiding in the dark shadows, we still see the adult turning around and regurgitating fish for their chicks. You can just hear the vocalizations of the African black oyster catchers, and of course with the tide still dropping out and getting a little bit lower, this is the perfect place for wading birds like these oyster catchers to find food. So that behavior that we were observing, the individual at the back actually had its head pointed down and was vocalizing. That behavior is often associated with a territorial display. I'm having a look around and I haven't seen any other conspecifics around, but we observed that behavior very frequently when Oliver and Olivia had Chipper and Chomp close by and other oyster catchers were flying overhead. The rocks are nice and exposed. And this is going to allow these beautiful wading birds to find limpets and mussels, maybe even the odd periwinkle and marine worm. One of my favorite sounds and one of my favorite birds to observe along the coast. You'll notice that the oyster catchers forage in bouts. Even though the tide is low, they'll still have breaks between foraging. They are quite lucky because their food isn't patchily distributed like the penguins.
Find a way into the kill to eat, get their fill in there as well. But they're also going to be told off. See, lions are not great at sharing their food. Okay, guys. Let me just taking frustration out on the other lion, but you see, it was interesting.
In the woodlands of Juma lives a lion pride with a taste for buffalo.
Look, 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 this is insane. Now, this is what I was saying about lions and buffalo. It's absolute pandemonium.
WildEarth have been privileged to follow the Nkuhuma pride for many years. One of the most loved cats in the pride is Amber Eyes. She was not successful in rearing her first 2 litter of cubs and was seen as an aunt to the other youngsters. Then eventually, towards the end of August 2019, we found her with 4 tiny cubs of her own.
Jasmine, I've wondered that for many, many years, and after years of watching the African penguins, I've watched them since, I would say, quite intensely from about 2010, and Jasmine would like to know if penguins would ever forage in the rock pools. I am yet to ever observe that. You'll normally only see them gathering in groups close to the rock pools, getting ready to go out and hunt offshore. So very, very difficult for a penguin to maneuver in such a small space like a rock pool. And of course they are very, very shallow. At the moment, those penguins, their bellies could probably graze along the rocks if they are not too careful. So it's not the most ideal area for an African penguin to forage. A little bit more space and a little bit more depth would be ideal. And of course they do like to hunt cooperatively as well, so they can cause distress amongst the bait fish that they desire to eat. Of course, in rock pools, it provides fish with a place to hide as well. Out in the open ocean, very, very difficult to hide. Of course, you can try and swim away. You can stay in the center of the bait ball. As a fish, you can also go up and down in the water column. But in a rock pool, the fish can simply shoot off into a rocky crevice and hide out until the predator has gone. Penguins will forage close inshore if there is an abundance of schooling fish or squid close by, and recently we have been seeing a lot of fish around Betty's Bay. Because Jackson Flippy saw Cape gannets diving, that gives a very, very good indication. And not so long ago, quite a while ago, there's actually another species of egret that has just flown here. This is really, really cool. We've got two species of egret. We've got the little egret that is standing closest to the shallow rock pools. And then we've got a western cattle egret on the right-hand side that has just hidden itself behind the rocks. Yes, Bobby, thank you so much. I am so excited that you enjoyed it and really, really can't wait to see what happens down here tomorrow. I wonder where we're going to head off to tomorrow. We can really go anywhere around Stony Point. This is the first time that I have seen the western cattle egret at the left wing. I have seen this species roam around where the birds nest. It's more of a terrestrial egret species. By that I mean it likes to spend more time on the land, where the little egret is really associated with water. It's known as the cattle egret because it commonly follows cattle around, and you can often see them riding on the backs of cattle, quite comical, when it stands on top of a cow. And they were known as tick birds, and that is because they eat ticks. But you can see the difference, and you can identify the difference between a little egret and a western cattle egret by looking at the bill. First of all, the bill is yellow in the western cattle egret and a blackish grey in the little egret. And then look at this western cattle egret's feet. There is no yellow on it whatsoever, so no yellow socks, just plain black feet. So very nice to identify them using those characteristics. Of course, they do look very, very similar in size. Wow, it really has been a fantastic day down here at Penguin Beach. I must say I am so surprised that we finally got to see this western cattle egret down here at the left wing. It's really, really cool. I've actually been wanting to show the viewers this bird for a very, very long time. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us, and please be sure to join us tomorrow for another action-packed Penguin Beach show. From myself and Flippy, cheers for now.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.